My father was part of the heavy artillery unit. I actually stayed with him in his foxhole overlooking Long Tieng. When the communists infiltrated Long Tieng, he was out there firing his 105 and 155 guns. So I was out there with my father, and I'll be in the foxhole. So all I could hear was, all these constant bombardment, these cannons going off and rockets flying. During that time, at night, they would fire flares. And these flares, there'll be a little parachute that would glide it down. I mean, that's why it came down really slow. And so we, as kids, we would often seek out those parachutes for toys. After the conflict calmed down, the next day I woke up really early and went out and searched for those parachutes. And I got near the airfield and I saw these dead Vietnamese. It was all quiet and everything, so I decided probably not safe for me to be here, so I walked back home.
Those who could made their way to Long Tieng in hopes of getting a flight to safety too. Grandparents, cousins, aunts, and uncles were gathered together to make the trek through the mountains to Long Tieng.
It was very chaotic during that time. And when we got there, it was several thousand people were all waiting there. And then soon, the plane started to come. And then it landed, and then people were just like... Little did we know that those planes were only reserved for military officers. In fact, General Pao said that each of those planes were designated for a colonel. When the plane landed, and they said, "This is Colonel Pao Xiong's airplane." And so my dad said, "Okay, if it's Colonel Pao Xiong's airplane, then let's go." And so everybody flocked, and then these C-46 are quite high, so you need to climb the stairs all the way to the door. And so they pushed us, and then my dad pushed us. My mom got in, my brothers got in, I got in, and then they closed the door. And it was like sardines in that C-46. You could probably fit about 30 people in there, but must have had been over 100 people in there. When we arrived in Nam Phong, we got out and looked around, and where's my dad, where's my brother, where's my grandma, grandpa, and aunts and uncle? We looked around and didn't see them. And I remember waiting at the airport with my mom to see when the next plane's gonna land and whether my dad and my grandma and grandpa was gonna step off. So waited until like 9 o'clock or so, and the C-130 came. And the C-130 landed, and my dad and grandma and grandpa came out.
Some families spent more than a decade in the refugee camps. Children were born there. People married. Neighborhoods were created, all the while waiting for their names to show up on a list of families approved to leave. And even then, it wasn't simple.
Our name came up twice. We didn't want to come. Family was divided into two. It was my parents, right? And then it was my grandma and grandpa and my aunts and uncle. So if we were to leave, what's going to happen to them? What if they didn't get to come, right? And so that was the fear. Here we are, we came all the way here. We're going to leave them here, and we're going to go to America and a country we know nothing about. We don't even know where it is, right? Or what state we're going to be in. Finally, my dad decided, okay, let's go. So we came on October 22nd, 1976.